Welcome to Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered with Perry Clark. This program looks at mental health from unique perspectives and shows you how to manage your life by finding the knots that help you and stay away from the ones that could be a disadvantage. Now, here is your host, Perry Clark.
Hello all, welcome back to Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered. I'm Perry Clark, licensed marriage and family therapist, here with you. And I'll remind you as always that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute working with a licensed professional in your area, and I strongly suggest seeking one out in your area, even if you have to do online to get that help, because a healthy mind is a healthy life. So today's podcast, which is going to be a little shorter than our usual ones, just because of with respect to the time that my interviewee was able to provide for us, I want to introduce you to a man who might as well also be a legend, especially here in the San Francisco Bay, for the work that he's done. And after reading your full bio, you got a lot to be able to stand for, but also with respect to the humility he brings to his work as well. So the man I'm talking about is Joe Hawkins. Joe is noted Oakland-based community organizer, LGBT activist, nonprofit executive, event producer, and social entrepreneur. Joe first came to national prominence as one of the first gay men to ever appear as a guest on the iconic Oprah Winfrey talk show during the early 90s, defending his right to parent his son as an out gay man. He was one of the many early HIV activists and appeared on numerous talk shows, including Geraldo Rivera and the PBS documentary Frontline, to highlight the often overlooked intersectional issues experienced by Black LGBT people to a national audience. Among his many accomplishments, Joe is a co-founder and former co-chair of the Oakland Pride. Joe also created California's largest and longest running Black LGBTQ film festival and produces California's longest running LGBTQ hip hop event that lasted 25 years. He also produces Blatino Oasis, California's largest and longest running gay and bisexual men of color getaway retreat held annually in Palm Springs. In 2017, Joe co-founded and is the CEO of the Oakland LGBT Pride Center and Community Center in Oakland, first all-inclusive intergenerational service center with a new model for service provision in Oakland. Joe loves living in Oakland and the Bay Area, spending time with his husband, Nico, camping on the beach, touring California, and spending time with his son and his 3 beautiful grandchildren. Welcome to Untying Knots, Joe.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Perry. Great. I love what you're doing. You're just a natural.
Thank you. Well, that goal of trying to blend mental health and all of our interests is not something that fits every category. Much like in reading your bio, you have fit many categories to bring attention. So how did you get into all of this? How did you start?
I will say that it all started for me when I was in the military. I served in the United States Army for a decade. And during that time, in 1985, the military did their first ever test for this new disease that we now call HIV. Mm-hmm. I was one of the first cohorts. And I remember was not out at the time, but there were lots of out service members who were in my platoon even. But they knew I was gay. They were like, dude, we know you're gay. And they would flirt with me. I would be very soldier-like and professional. But that day, when we tested, I literally collapsed. And they took me into the barracks and said, Sergeant Hawkins, is everything okay? What's going on? And I was like, I think I got it. And they said, got what? I said, I think, and I was very young. I was like 19, 20 maybe, 19 or 20. And they said, I said, I think I got that disease. And they said, why do you think you have it? have you had sex with men? And at that time, I had not. And so I said, no. And they said, well, how did you get it? And they were feeling even more knowledgeable. It's very interesting. They said you got to have sex with men. That was the criteria back then.
Right.
If you have sex with a man, you're going to get it. And you're going to die. And so I said no. And then one of my friends said, Joe, look, I've been to every bathhouse in New York City. Look at me. I'm healthy. If I don't have it, how do you got it? And it didn't make me feel better, but I felt it was a curse from God. I literally did. At the time, I was actually a chaplain's assistant. And that was my way to sort of distract people from the fact that, I might be gay. So I would just sort of hide like so many people do in the church, And so I did that in the military. And about a couple of weeks later, I learned that one of my friends had left because there was a death in his family. And he was the guy who said to me, Joe, I've been to every bathhouse in New York. And so they said his mother died, blah, blah. But I got a call from Korea. I was in Korea at the time. So I got a call from 121, which is a big military hospital in Seoul, Korea. And it was on the payphone. And he said, Joe, I'm at 121. I'm like, wait, I was confused. I'm like, he said, no, they made that story up. I'm at 121 hospital. Come see me. So here I am, totally confused. So I went, I got on a bus and I went, I was in like Tamdachan, which is a small village. And it took me about 30 minutes. When I got there, it had a very high security clearance because of the work that I did. But when I got there, I was put in a complete hazmat suit. And that's when I knew, what the hell? And then so I went into his room and there was a bay full of men. And it was like looking at a movie because they were coughing. There were people with Kaposi sarcoma. You could see clearly. And he was looking the bill of health. And he said, Joe, they made a mistake. You got to talk with somebody, see how I can get out of here. And I said, are you sure? He said, look at me. He said, look at me. I said, well, come to the church downstairs so we can pray about it. He said, I'm not going to do that. He said, because I'm not a hypocrite. I said, what do you mean? He said, Joe, when I get back to America, I'm going to find out that they made a mistake. And I'm going to go back doing what I've always done, what I enjoy. He died of AIDS later. I learned after I got out of the military, I found out that he did die of AIDS. And that was when I really started feeling the need to get involved in community. So when I got out of the military, actually ETS here in Oakland, I'm originally from Detroit. And I remember walking down Broadway in like 1988 or 87, 88. And I remember just saying, this kind of reminds me of home. And then I didn't think of it. And I left and went back home. I came out as a gay man to my son's mother because I had a very small child at the time. And I moved to Oakland. And I started doing work, just started working in community in so many areas. So yeah, that's how it started for me.
Very pointed in putting that aspect and that energy into serving the community and being able to represent, which we fast forward to now, what has been done with the LGBT Center in Oakland. Can we speak a little bit about that? I know I saw in your postings recently, you just came back from a meeting of a lot of the various centers, leaderships across the state.
Exactly. I think, it was in Palm Springs, a convening of LGBTQ Center leaders. And, what's always telling when you go to these conferences, whether they're national or statewide, is that there are very few of us. There are very few Black people who are in those roles. And literally, I feel like I had to found a center to lead LGBTQ Center. But when I think back to the starting of the center, it really goes back to when we started Oakland Pride. And Oakland had a couple of iterations of Pride. There used to be East Bay Pride. The guy took the money and ran. Just a lot of mismanagement. Then there was a smaller attempt at a Pride. Danny Wan, who was the out city council person, actually the first city council person to be out and gay here in Oakland. He tried an iteration, and then there was Oakland Pride. So the goal was, I went to we used to have a rainbow round table at Oakland City Hall, and I was a part of that. And one day I went to a meeting to figure out what we could do to start East Bay Pride up again. And I went to that meeting, and Rebecca Kaplan, who is the out city council person currently, and she was there, and she said, look, I can't start this. Who here wants to start? And the room was full. And I said, look, I will start Pride only if the goal of the Pride is to, one, open a community, facilitate the creation of a community center. Two, that we don't call it East Bay Pride. I live in Oakland. I think that we should be proud of our city. And then that's when I went and incorporated it as Oakland Pride. And, it's so interesting because many years later, I left Oakland Pride. I was there for maybe the first 4 years. I remember when we first started Oakland Pride, and there was a lot of things going on. There was the Oscar Grant. He was killed by the police that year. Also, Occupy Oakland was happening. So Oakland was on fire. So we had chosen a date the year before. We had been working towards that date. And people started calling me and saying, Joe, I don't think people are going to come to a Pride in Oakland. I don't think it's going to happen because the streets are on fire. And helicopters every day. It was on national news. And so I was preparing to not do it because I said, let's just try again next year, until we got a call from someone asking, hey, they knew that I did nightclubs, and they were like, hey, we got somebody coming through town. Would you want to host them at a club? But I said, who is it? And they said, Shaka Khan. I was like, no, we want her at Pride. It happened to be the same time period. So that's when things are, meant to be. And that's, we launched Oakland Pride with Shaka Khan, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences. She shared that her to the host audience, but she also told us in the van that she was, he said, Joe, I've been here, I got my name for Black Panther, and I learned a lot, and it just was so poignant. It was very powerful to me. And so, that's one of my most proudest moments, because all of that, all of the protest and everything that was happening culminated in this beautiful, loving experience that everyone got to enjoy. So, I was very happy about that.
So I'm
But
definitely, oh,
yeah,
no, no,
no problem.
I was about to say is I'm definitely hearing a theme in all of this about the aspect of answering a need to fill a vacancy that's present in so many different places. I mean, just what you were saying about the lack of LGBT centers that are centered or that are led and centered around people of color, even to, which I'll go ahead and drop this one in there, Blatino Oasis, which is also very much a focused event. And then, depending on the lexicon of various gay events that are out there, that is purely centered on men of color.
Yeah, that Latino Oasis for me was it was very interesting. I had a nightclub and I used to book go-go dancers and porn
Mm-hmm.
stars from everywhere. And
Mm-hmm.
one day I was we were just having a conversation with them, and they said to me, we're here for the gay VNs. I had
Mm-hmm.
no idea what the gay VNs, which is
Mm-hmm.
like an award ceremony for people who do porn. And I was like, so, are any of you getting an awards? And they said at that time, this was 17 years ago, maybe 18 years ago. And they
Mm-hmm.
said, no, they don't give Black people awards. And I was like, what? And they said, it's very rare. Maybe if you are having sex with a white guy, you might get some, but they don't really recognize us. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. And I thought, okay, I sort of let it go. And then one of the porn stars became a friend of mine, and he's a Puerto Rican guy. And he called me from Palm Springs, and he said, Joe, I really think you should do something where the people who come to your club could come to Palm Springs and enjoy it. I said, why? He said, because he said, I'm here and it's peaceful. There are all these clothing optional resorts. It's beautiful. He said, you really should think about doing something here.
Mm-hmm.
I flew like that day. I caught a plane. I just had to see I was so curious. What are you talking about? I had never been to Palm Springs. I flew there. And at that time, Palm Springs was going through a downturn.
Right.
So everything was available to me. I booked the whole event in a matter of hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I threw the event a few months later. It's just that quick, and the rest is history. And it was very clear. And then I learned when I was down there that the mayor, Ron, what's Ron's last name? Do you know Ron's? Ron, he was the first black gay mayor.
I'm blanking at the moment myself.
Yeah, Ron, and so he and I got to talk. So I was doubly inspired.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually honored him at Latino Oasis. But and then that's how it started. And I'm very, very, very proud of it. I do feel sometimes the party aspects of my life are so like I'm in my 60s. I'm not really interested so much in that.
Right.
But when the pandemic hit, so many people said, "Don't stop. Please do not give it up." Here in California, we don't really have a lot, and just hang in there. Blah blah blah. So I'm still here.
Which I would also then draw the parallel between working on Oakland Pride, working on the center, even to Blatino Oasis. You're all dealing with the mental health of our people, and the standpoint that we need that positive place or that place that adds to our identity as well.
Yeah, we've been a really strong partner in Palm Springs with DAP, which is Desert AIDS Project. It has a different name now, but DAP from the very beginning has been a partner for us because I really wanted to try to destigmatize homosexual behavior.
Mm-hmm.
We not only does the mainstream demonize us, but so does we do it to ourselves. And I thought, what a great way to celebrate our sexuality
Mm-hmm.
in a great place where people don't have to feel judged. And I can honor these people who, literally are in many men's dreams or on their computer screens when they're having their own fantasies.
Mm-hmm.
And I can recognize them because they never really get recognized,
Mm-hmm.
and celebrate them. And that has been, some people would say to me, Joe, don't do it. Your credibility is gonna be shot.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna be say, no, 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 no. I don't care. That's not. I know what I know what I'm feeling, and I'm gonna go with it.
Now, which gets into that aspect of where the idea of credibility or professionalism, or I would call social shame,
Yes,
used
yes,
to work against us, and that can actually be detrimental to people's mental health
yes,
as
and
a whole.
yeah. The men that I have seen who, I mean, not everyone stays in porn, but I think that when I've watched men go on and do other things, and so, even those who still, you can't do porn forever.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when I see them evolve, and especially those who we were able to recognize, and they always will tell me that, Joe, that was very important to I felt proud. I felt okay. I felt okay that
Mm-hmm.
I was recognized in that way. And, yeah, I'm really happy to do that in community too, because although it's really interesting. It's not my scene,
Mm-hmm.
but I can see that it is a part of a lot of people's lives. Watching adult films, watching adult content creators, they do it. Millions of people do it, and they often are unsung. And
Mm-hmm.
I get an opportunity to do that, so I'm really happy.
So, in the time I got left, I got one more question I'm going to ask you, and this one's a little broader, but still dealing with our mental health. And as you said, you are a gentleman of 60, and those arms are just not stopping on you. And I know who your husband is, and I can see his influence there. But I think it's an interesting question that we also need to reflect on, is the fact that how have we as a community been recovering from the loss of AIDS and our population base, as we are. I know for myself, I'm now 47. So it's like, I'm filling that gap of the age range that was lost. And what are you seeing that now, that as we're moving forward, with both having that gap and those of us that are filling that gap?
What's sad to me is even today, Black men are still dying of HIV-related complications. That's something. We opened the Glenberg Wellness Clinic.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who don't know who Glenberg was the first Major League Baseball player to ever come out as gay. And this is during the 70s. He's from Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
He was unapologetically gay. He's credited with creating the high five that you see so many people doing today. And he was blackballed. And he had to deal with incredible stigma. And he played for the Dodgers, he played for the A's, and they basically kicked him out.
Mm-hmm.
He was compared to Willie Mays. This is how good this guy was. And he died of, I think, a broken heart and complications due to he was only from HIV, AIDS-related complications, and he died. He deserved to be in the major leagues. He deserved it. And I think that the clinic that we created, we think of him often. Actually, his niece even volunteers there. We think of him often. What would Glenn have needed? What would he have needed? And he would have needed mental health. He would have needed recovery services because he was addicted to crack. He would have needed all those things. And those are the things that we provide at our clinic. And we're about to actually open an East Oakland, Glenburg East clinic. We're expanding right as we speak. And so I get to meet so many young people. Many of them I've been able to hire. We have a staff of about 30 something full-time people right now, and we're expanding. And I love to hear their ideas and their experiences about how are they navigating their sexuality? How are they navigating? They have tools that we didn't used to have at our clinic. I get to talk with our providers and hear them talk about the injectable PrEP or DoxyPEP, which people can take and prevent themselves from getting gonorrhea or syphilis, which is these are transformative treatments, and people don't have to get HIV anymore. It's not necessary. We have the tools, and so I get to hear how they live when in a world where those variables can be somehow prevented or controlled. It's very interesting. They seem more liberated to me, and I think I'm happy for them. I'm happy. I'm not HIV positive. Thank goodness I was able to make it through all that time. I think it was just fear for me because I'm a dad, and just a little bit. My son his mother was killed in a fire when he was very young, and I went through a protracted battle to keep him. Landed me on Oprah Winfrey, and I won my case. He's now in his 40s, 3 grandchildren, and it's incredible. But I wasn't willing to let him lose another parent. So I did whatever I needed to do to be around. And I also think about the services, the center. It's very clear to me that moment for me was transformative back when I was on that show. And I knew after that everyone wouldn't have an Oprah Winfrey.
Or a moment like that.
Yeah. Especially not an Oprah Winfrey.
Oh, yeah. Because believe me, I'm not trying to be her either. So.
Right. So I just really think that was powerful, and we need powerful institutions in place to advocate for the next person who might lose their child because they're LGBTQ or whatever the case might be, or what level of advocacy they may need, which I think that we've become a very powerful institution in just 7 years right here in Oakland. And it was just very clear to me that we need a powerful advocate in our institutions here and around the country and around the world.
Very nice. So I know we're wrapping up just because we have to, for timing and so forth in respect to that. Where can folks find more information about the organization, the center in Oakland, and also Blatino Oasis, so they can book it for 2025?
Well, for sure, because the center, they can just Google Oakland LGBTQ Center. It'll come right up. I'm very sure of that. The same with Blatino Oasis. They could just Google it. It's going to come up. So, yeah, I think that's the best way.
All righty. Well, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for all the service that you've done, and I want you to just keep enjoying life as is.
I appreciate you so much, Perry. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See you later. And well, folks, like I said, this was going to be a short one. So I hope you're doing well. I hope you're enjoying celebrating Pride this year. And I'll go on the political aspect of there. Get out and vote, because there's a lot of people who want to take all of our options away. So make sure we keep them and stay safe. Till next time.
Thank you for tuning in for Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered. Be sure to join your host, Perry Clark, for another episode on the podcast coming soon on the Voice America Empowerment Channel.